Ryan, you're killing me, okay? I'm trying to deliver, like, the grandest opening of all time. And you keep, like, dropping squids on my head. Like an interdimensional rain of squids on my head.
You've had 191 chances, Brian.
We've only done 73 takes. That's it. 73. This many. Okay?
You've had 191 episodes of trying to do the greatest opening of all time.
That's what you're talking about. Well, you know, one of these days I'm going to nail it, all right? I'm going to nail it.
Yeah. We'll just keep doing the show. But then once you've done, like, that one perfect opening, then we'll stop recording
We'll end
the
it
show.
right on top.
Yeah.
Right on top of a giant building in New York like a squid.
Okay, so that's our new...
We're gonna drop the perfect intro on you like an interdimensional one-eyed squid. Right? And the reverberation of sonic blast happiness from our perfect intro will probably destroy the internet. Just...
And the psychic blast is gonna just drive us crazy.
Drive somebody else crazy. One of the beauties, Brian, of having a small brain is psychic blast don't hurt me. Ha ha ha! Joke's on you.
I always wear some tinfoil anytime, so...
Come on, you're supposed to tell me I don't have a small brain. Everybody knows I don't have a small... I got the biggest brain. I would die first if there was a psychic blast.
No, you have a very...
I have the biggest brain.
Biggest brain.
Nobody's got a... It's a perfect brain. It's a beautiful, perfect, big brain.
Perfect opening to every podcast.
Whatever. If you haven't figured out what we're talking about yet, this is going to be the Watchmen episode. That's right. We've been teasing that we were going to review the new HBO show Watchmen. We got a little bit late to it, and so we decided we'd get caught up with all 5 episodes, and then we do a review discussion. So that's what tonight's going to be about on the Geek Dad Report, the one show dedicated, formulated, specially created, and bringing you guys all the nerd news you need to know, all while not dropping a giant squid on your beautiful faces. I am the Squid Master, Brian, the hostess with the absolute mostest.
And I am the harpoon guy that's going to shoot these squids with a giant harpoon.
I don't think that's an official job title. The harpoon guy.
It's like, we'll get a boat and then we'll put a giant harpoon cannon on it.
If this was a Star Trek episode, the harpoon guy would definitely be wearing a red shirt. That's all I'm saying. So if you want to be the harpoon guy, that's up to you, man.
I'm just going to say, I'm definitely at least one step above red shirt. So...
What is one step above red shirt? Because you had like the gold shirts and the blue shirts and the green shirts.
Well, the red shirts are the ensign. So, and those are like, you know.
Did they have like a tangerine shirt that got shot sometimes?
Yeah, I think we could. We'll just make like a light teal, maybe.
Ooh, there we go. How about a pink shirt?
Yeah, a pink shirt. Star Trek is very open to all.
Very inclusive. It's very inclusive. Yeah. That's very true. All right, but we're not talking about Star Trek. We were talking about the Watchmen tonight. I mean, that's not all we're talking about. We got some news. I think we're going to talk about the cutest thing in the entire planet that's taken the internet by storm.
Not you, Brian. I'm sorry.
That's right, Brian. We're talking about me. This is the Brian episode.
I know where you're going with that. We've already had, a lot of Brian episodes.
There's a reason why I'm wearing my Incredible shirt. Because I am, in fact, incredible.
You're incredible.
I'm incredible.
But you know what? It's more incredible, Brian.
What?
It's Baby Yodas.
Oh my God. The cutest thing on the planet. We're going to talk all about the Baby Yodas taking the world by storm. We got a few other news stories, but like we said, it's going to be a real heavy Watchmen episode tonight. We don't have any questions from the Faithful 50, not because the Faithful 50 or 15 or 5 were not prepared. It's because Ryan was not prepared and did not put a post out there. So this is one of those...
I apologize. It turned out to be one of those really busy days where about 15 minutes until we were about to record. I was like, oh crap, I never did the question post.
That's all right, man. I feel you, dude. I'm a delivery driver by trade in my Clark Kent day job, and right now, this time of year is the absolute worst. From pretty much now until the second week of January, I'm in like hell week for 6 weeks. So. Yeah. So we are not going to have episodes every week. We probably won't have one next week. We'll have a couple sporadically in December. Do not worry, though. We're absolutely going to do a Rise of Skywalker, discussion roundtable. We might even get a couple guest hosts, and we'll just nerd out about the finale to the Skywalker saga. I've already got like 9 tickets. Can I just get a side note real quick? My email, and I get it. Disney is trying to sell a shit ton of tickets to Rise of Skywalker. They want to make sure everybody knows that tickets are available. AMC, Fandango, Adam, they all want people to know that the tickets are available. But there's got to be some kind of a button. I've already bought like 13 tickets. All right? Yeah. Quit blowing me up for more tickets. I'm completely aware that it's coming out. There's got to be some button that you're like, I already purchased tickets. Leave me alone. Spend your resources on somebody else.
So did you get tickets for opening night and then like weekend tickets?
So me and my daughter and one of my friends, we're going to be going to the Thursday night. It's like 6 or 6:30. So we'll see it opening. I guess I don't even know what's considered opening night. It used to be Friday. Now it's Thursdays, I guess. But we're going Thursday night to see it. And then I'm taking the whole family, the wife and both daughters will go on Saturday.
Yeah, I need to prepay for my tickets.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, depending on what theaters there are, all the opening nights are sold out, and Friday night and Saturday night are sold out. I mean, this is projected to have somewhere between $190 and $200 million opening. So, I mean, which is hilarious because people are calling it a down. It's going to be a down opening. I'm like, $200 million. It's going to make $1.5 billion.
That's terrible.
Well, I mean, if you look at any of the movies, like the third one always does worse. Like in any trilogy, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Matrix. I mean, Return of the Jedi was like the lowest grossing of all 3 films. So the third movie always does worse than the first 2, just because people get fatigued and they get tired of it. And it's not a big, when The Force Awakens came out, it was like the thing to do. It was like everyone had to see the new Star Wars movie. So the whole world saw it. That's why it made like $2.5 billion. And now it's a novelty. Now you're going to get a lot of people who care about it, but there's a lot of people who aren't. I don't think it's quite the event that The Force Awakens was. People have been waiting for those characters for 40 years to see what happened to Han and Luke and Leia. Now we kind of know. And so, people aren't as in big of a hurry to go see the last Star Wars movie. I mean, it'll still do really well. And, I mean, everybody's going to go see it. And if it's a really good movie, which I think it will be, it'll do even better because people will go see it 2, 3, 4 times. And if word of mouth gets going, that it's great. I mean, I think it could potentially do $2 billion again. We'll see.
You know what they need to do though? They need to tease that there's going to be new Yoda,
new baby Yoda. Yeah, we're going to get to baby Yoda in a minute. I mean, I guess we might as well here. Since we only have some news and Watchmen to talk about, we might as well jump into the rest of the news for the week. There's not much of it, but definitely Star Wars. I mean, the big internet sensation of the week has been Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda has been all over everywhere, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to stop what you're doing, subscribe to Disney Plus, and watch episode 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian. So, I guess this is some basic spoilers.
So, there's a free week trial. So, if you don't feel like paying for it, you can try it for a week.
But you'll pay for it. It's a good service. I mean, if you think about it, I've literally gotten to the point, me and the wife were sitting down on the couch the other night looking at, the stuff on Disney Plus. Because I watched the new Dumbo movie with the kids. We watched Captain Marvel. My wife hadn't seen that yet, so we watched that as a family. Obviously, I'm watching Mandalorian. That's about all I've watched so far, but we're going through just all the movies and series and stuff. And then I asked her, when's the last time we watched anything on Netflix? And we could not remember the last time we'd watched anything on Netflix. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff coming out this month in January for Netflix, so I'll probably keep it for a few more months. But I think Netflix is going to get to all the shows we watch are either on Hulu or Amazon Prime at this point.
So we, my son and I started watching the Clone Wars.
Oh, I know. As soon as I get through a few of my shows I've been trying to finish up, I'm going to watch that.
I was just kind of going through all the animated shows, and I watched 2 episodes of Doug.
Oh, nice. God, Doug. I didn't know Doug was on there. I haven't seen that in forever.
It did not age well. That's for sure.
I watched the pilot episode of Darkwing Duck. That was great.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about the theme song. Darkwing Duck.
It's to watch at least the intro for X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, and then when the show started, they're like, yeah, I don't want to watch this. So.
You know what show here's the hard part about some of these animated shows on Disney Plus, like, because they started in the 90s and a lot of them sometimes even in the 80s. By the end of the run, the animation's better, but you have to start at the beginning. So, like, if you watch The Simpsons now, it's infinitely better than if you watch the very first episode of The Simpsons, right? So
it's like squiggly lines and
yeah, it's so bad, but. Yeah, the show I'm really anxious to give a rewatch that I haven't not watched since it aired, since I don't think you could find it anywhere, is Gargoyles. 3 seasons of Gargoyles. I really want to watch that. I think I'm going to watch it with my kids.
Yeah, I have that one on reserve. I'm just trying to find some, like, actual time to try and watch.
Dude, same here, man. All I do is walk around thinking to myself, man, I wish I was at home watching all the stuff on Disney Plus. I want to watch, like, they got a bunch of Star Wars stuff. Like, they have this Empire of Dreams. Apparently, it's a really good documentary about George Lucas making Star Wars. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. And listen, Disney Plus is not paying us. It's just, it definitely is. I mean, I think we're the target audience. I don't even think kids are the target audience. I think, like, people between the age of 25 and 45 are the target audience for Disney Plus.
Yeah, there's definitely no shortage of stuff right now on the Disney Plus.
I was gonna say,
start getting the Marvel stuff.
Yeah,
then it's gonna be pretty dang sweet. So.
Yeah, well, true, and like, and honestly, I think the kids have to get used to watching Disney Plus because, like back to what I was talking about Netflix. You know, me and the wife were talking about maybe canceling Netflix for, like, only having it for 3 or 4 months a year, watching all the shows we want to watch, and then just canceling it for the rest of the year because we don't really watch it. But the kids, my girls, you would have thought that I canceled Christmas. They were like, what? No, because they watch a lot of the cartoons. I mean, to them, they don't even watch cable. They just go to Netflix and watch their shows on Netflix. So, and there's a lot. It makes sense because I've seen over the last few years, Netflix was spending a ton of resources making kid shows. And I think I'm figuring out now why they did that. Because if you get the kids hooked on Netflix, well, they're the future audience. And they're the ones who, to them, Netflix is TV, right?
Yeah. They're going to complain when you cancel it. So
yeah, well, they'll have to get used to Disney Plus. There's a million things on Disney Plus. But to be fair, a lot of them are nostalgia things. So we'll see. But they do love The Mandalorian. But yeah, so, I mean, we're talking about Mandalorian. Baby Yoda. I don't know. Do we want to talk about the episode at all? We should talk about it. I know last week we broke down what we thought about Mandalorian.
I mean, it's definitely, like you said, it's the talking internet right now. I mean, just the capabilities.
Yeah. Well, here, let's tell you what. Before
has to destroy Jawas.
Before we get into an official, into the official news, let's have a short little discussion about The Mandalorian. So, spoiler, we are going to talk about episode 2 of The Mandalorian. If you have not watched it, like I said, I would highly recommend it. There's nothing that's going to ruin it that if you decide you want to watch us talk about it, it's not like you're not going to enjoy the episode, but there's definitely some fairly sized spoilers in there, so you've been warned. But yeah,
there's new episodes every Friday. So
there was a few things about The Mandalorian I learned this week. So the first week, we were like, oh, okay, I think the first week a lot of us were just trying to figure out, like, what is Star Wars TV going to be, right? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to be like? Is it going to feel like Star Wars, or is it going to feel like a TV show? And honestly, I think we all I think we got a little bit of mixed reviews. It felt Star Wars, but it also felt like TV. It kind of straddled that line in between pretty well. You didn't have the big opening crawl or the John O. Williams soundtrack, but it definitely had a distinct Star Wars feel to it. So, especially at the end when you get the Baby Yoda, I mean, there was a lot of connective tissue between the larger. It definitely felt more like a connective to the larger Star Wars universe than it did the movies per se. So it felt more connected to, say, Clone Wars or the Rebels or something than actually like one of the movies. I felt like this one, I think this one continued that trend, but I think this one tells us kind of much more what this show is gonna be about. Like, The show isn't. It's gonna be kind of like just a weekly western. Like the Mandalorian does this week, and then next week he's gonna do something else, and then next week he's gonna do something else, and it's all gonna kind of move into one big movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they're all about 36 minutes so far.
The first one was 39 minutes. And episode 2, if you take out the previously seen in the credits, it was only 27 minutes long.
Yeah, so, it's a terrific 27 minutes, but like you said, it does just feel like they're just really movie shorts that are, like Star Wars Western movie shorts.
You know when I got the distinct, and this episode in particular, so in the first episode, the Mandalorian's kind of a badass. I mean, he gets in a couple situations like where IG-11 bails him out, but for the most part, he's like, oh, okay, I'm a badass. In this episode, he gets the crap kicked out of him a lot. He borderlines almost being completely incompetent to the point where Jawas completely almost steal his entire ship, strip it apart. I mean, dude, seriously, you don't have any security on this thing. You have, whatever. And then he gets his ass kicked by Jawas, and then he gets his ass kicked by a rhinoceros. I mean, he got a lot of ass whoopings dealt out to him.
Captions on the episode did a lot of heavy breathing.
Oh, God. Oh, really? I didn't. That's funny.
Heavy breathing a lot.
Well, there was absolutely no dialogue for about 15 minutes, 12, well, maybe not 15, about 10, 12 minutes into the show.
The whole final 10 minutes was essentially there no dialogue.
Yeah, and so, the show, I think that what the show's going to be is it's very much of a Flash Gordon era. Every episode is going to be the adventures of the Mandalorian, right? Now, granted, this is one big story, but each week is just going to have him doing something that continues the story. I mean, I guess that's what a lot of shows are, but this definitely follows one central character. It's his kind of... I mean, we're going to jump in and jump out. There's not a lot to these. They're quick. Yeah. They're freaking hilarious. This episode...
They're very... you can see that there's a lot of structure in what they're trying to say. It's not quick, they're just, throwing stuff out, and it's just flying by.
Yeah, I just mean this reminds me a lot of Indiana Jones. That's the best way I can...
Well, that's a good comparison.
And it really struck me, and I think the thing that struck me about this is the Mandalorian to me is Indiana Jones. He's a little more murdery than Indiana Jones, but... he's kind of this idiot who's tough and smart, but kind of gets himself in these bad positions all the time. Yeah. And his only plan is to just fight his way out and hope shit works out for him, right?
His weapons are his religion.
Yeah, so. His weapons are his religion. I mean, there's just so much here. He just reminds me of Indiana Jones, jumping headfirst into every situation. And it struck me because when he's trying to, when he's chasing the Jawas down, and they have this whole scene where he's trying to get up the top of the sandcrawler to get to the Jawas so he can get his parts back to his ship. That whole that reminded me so much of the Last Crusade tank fight scene. Where they're trying to smash him on the rocks, and people are trying to shoot at him, and he's climbing up the wall, and the timing and the humor of this was so Indiana Jones. The part when he gets to the very top and he's like, ha ha! And then all the Jawas just blast him with the ion cannons. And he just falls.
And he just falls off the top and, knocked out for a little while with Baby Yoda just sitting over him.
Yeah, now, I mean, the thing is I will say, they're doing a lot of heavy lifting in these short times. I mean, in these 2 episodes, you've learned a lot about the Mandalorian. To your point, the weapons are his religion, how he feels about his armor. He's a man of few words, does not like to negotiate, will team up with people, but mostly he's a solitary character, right? Yeah. I love the part when he...
It's he just want half, that's pretty. He just divides it straight up, no, 60-40, anything like that.
Yeah, the money to him isn't exactly the end all be all, and he's very honorable when it comes to the people who he respects. But for instance, the Jawas, he's got to sit down and negotiate with the Jawas, and the first time the Jawa says something he doesn't like, he tries to light his head on fire with a flamethrower, right? Which is, I mean, the whole Jawas. First of all, the Jawas are up there with my new favorite characters, and my brother, I'll give him credit for this one. He calls me and he's like, dude, I was watching this episode and it's great. You know what I realized? I go, what? He goes, Jawas are just minions with Jawa costumes on. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what they are. Dude, the Jawas were so great in this episode. I mean, I will never look at Jawas the same again. They were so funny.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Jawas. I enjoyed a little bit of the Jawan language. You know, the you into you whatever. And
Utini is great. I love Utini. But I love when they told him he speaks like a Wookiee. And then they're laughing at him when they hit the bump and he like hits his head on the fucking top of the thing. But I mean,
I was kind of wondering what they're gonna do with the egg. I did not expect them. I thought like, oh, maybe they're gonna like try and breed a rhinoceros thing or whatever. But nope, they just like.
Yeah, they just cracked open the egg and ate it. That was so gross. Yeah. Other than that, the Jawas, though, I thought the Jawas were hilarious. I liked how they tried to defend their sand. We got to see them trying to defend a sandcrawler. They had those little trapdoors where they're throwing stuff out of it.
I'm trying to remember. It reminded me of one of those TV shows, like where they keep opening up all the.
It reminded me of Batman when Batman's. Yeah, it reminded me when Batman's crawling up like a building in the old '66 Batman show. It also kind of reminded me almost like a Monty Python sketch to an extent. I mean, in a good way, but it was.
It felt like it was one of those like comedic sketches where like people would open up windows like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And
it was. But the best part was like the action was incredible though. Like it never felt like stupid or slapstick. It came across very comedic, but it felt, and I also like this that we got to see like in Empire Strikes Back, we've all been wondering, at least I have, when Vader looks at Boba Fett and says no disintegrations, what does that look like? Well, now we get to see what it looks like because the Mandalorian disintegrated all kinds of freaking people in this episode. Yeah. My favorite's when he's looking at the Jawas, he just starts blowing them up, and he's looking at his rifle, and there's this one Jawa like, you did it! He's just like spraying like bullets in all directions, and then he just gets blown up. And there's something, I sound terrible and morbid, because there's something hilarious, somewhat terribly hilarious, when he shoots them with that gun, and they like do a backflip and then explode into the air. It's crazy.
Yeah. So my son he had a question for me, that I was trying to figure out how to answer, but if there were like 300 guys or whatever that were guarding the baby Yoda, like who were those people?
We don't know yet. So one of the theories might be is that that the baby was kidnapped by the Hutt Syndicate. Mm-hmm. And so the baby is they're guarding it, the baby. That's why there's so much like muscle surrounding it.
Because we watched it and we were like, are they good guys guarding them or are they bad guys guarding them? I mean, we were trying to make that determination on.
I don't think we know yet. I think one of the things I kind of like about the show is they're not giving us too much information, but they're not giving us no information, if that makes sense. Like you feel like all these questions are going to be answered over the course of the show. But right now they're really just kind of giving us the feel and the characters. And and honestly, I don't expect this. Right now it feels very much like Samurai or kind of Lone Gunman or like I said, kind of the adventures. Like this show would be like, if it was like the adventures of the Mandalorian. I mean, it feels like an Indiana Jones weekly, special, right? Which is cool. And I love that feeling. But I wouldn't be surprised if they changed it. I mean, at the very end of this episode, we finally get our larger connection to the Star Wars universe because we find out that, spoiler alert, Baby Yoda is actually, I mean, we don't know he's Baby Yoda, but I don't know what else to call him. But he's a very powerful Force user already as a baby.
He was lifted that rhino off the ground.
Well, twice he attempted to use Force Heal, which is a very advanced Jedi technique. And that, can I just say, is the cutest thing I've ever seen when the Mandalorian is trying to heal his cut, and little Baby Yoda crawls out, and he's like little three fingers, and I'm just like, I'm watching it with my daughters and my wife, and all of us are like, oh, he's so cute. But at the end, he, the rhino, which that whole scene was pretty cool. Like, he goes in, the rhino kicks the Mandalorian's ass. I really like seeing the Mandalorian's, like, armor broken, and, like, he's not Boba Fett, right? He doesn't have he doesn't have the jetpack. He doesn't have all the stuff. I mean, he's just a guy trying to get through. Just a dude who's just a tough guy, just trying to get through. And this rhino is just kicking his ass. And my favorite part of that whole thing before Baby Yoda intervened is like he's got like a concussion. He doesn't know where he is, but this rhino's charging him. And he's just like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die on my own 2 feet. And he reaches down and grabs his knife. And I liked it. I really thought it said a lot about the character of the last shot that he thinks he's dead. But yet he's standing there like ready to take on this rhino, and he's like just kind of wobbling because he can barely stand, and all he's got left is his knife. And he's just like, come on, rhino, and the thing charges him, and he's gonna take it. He's probably gonna die. I think he knows it.
Yeah.
But I just think it says a lot about his character in general, right? Like,
yeah, it shows that, he's not afraid to step up to whatever task that's at hand, and and from my understanding of what my son told me about Mandalorians, that that is something that they highly value, as a warrior kind of race or whatever.
Well,
so
the thing I like too is if you've never seen the Clone Wars, and I've seen the Clone Wars. And I know a lot about the Mandalorians, but I mean, the nice thing about this show is they're giving you things if you know all the back lore and you're a canon expert. But they're also anybody who doesn't know what a Mandalorian is. They're slowly walking you through what a Mandalorian is, with little bits like my weapons are my religion. Nick Nolte Ugnaught is saying like he can't part with his armor. That's just a Mandalorian just can't do that. And then, like I said, with him standing there with his knife, like ready to die, but ready to die as a warrior, they're giving us these little things without having to tell us things, and they're doing it without a whole bunch of exposition. And I think that these 2 episodes, if I had to guess, these 2 episodes were the original pilot, and they just kind of chopped them into 2 episodes. Because these 2 episodes give us a lot of who the Mandalorian is, what he's about. He's not rich, but he's definitely tough. But he's also got a soft spot.
Yeah.
And kind of who he is as a character. All that being said, it doesn't really matter because this show might as well be called Baby Yoda, because by the time Baby Yoda lifts that rhino in the sky, I think everyone was just like, Mando who? Let's get to the Baby Yoda show.
Baby Yoda walking, eating frogs.
Oh my god, that was hilarious. He was like tracking that frog. And even like when the Mandalorian's killing everybody, I like how Baby Yoda's like watching him. He's like watching over here. He's watching over there. He's like following him as he's punching people. And he's like,
And the Mandalorian just goes like, spit that out. And then like the Baby Yoda just like.
So did you know that Baby Yoda is a puppet?
It's a puppet?
Yeah, so apparently they had a CGI version and a puppet version. And they tried the CGI version. They tried the CGI version. And and people just didn't like it as much. And apparently, Warner Hogg, I forget his name, but the guy who was the original Imperial.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, he told them that the CGI was an abomination, and that if they didn't use the puppet, he'd walk.
Oh, jeez.
And so, clearly, he was right. So they just that's a real life puppet that they used for that, and I think they made the right choice. But they do such a good job with that puppet of. You read his eyes and you're feeling what he's feeling. Like you could tell he's watching everything around him. And even though he doesn't talk, he's able to use the Force, I'm guessing, to read people and read the situation. So, he may not like the violence, he may not whatever, but you can tell he's latched onto the Mandalorian as somebody who he feels like something with, right? A connection to.
Yeah, obviously he'd got like a Force connection or something with him. I mean, but isn't there only going to be 6 episodes?
So I don't know. I keep hearing 10. I keep hearing 8. I keep hearing like there's going to be a couple like double episodes. All I know is that it's going to be every Friday.
It's supposed to be like 1 hour or something. I
honestly just don't know. So I do know the one thing I will say about scheduling. It's going to be every Friday, like you said, except for the week that the Rise of Skywalker releases. That because that comes out on Friday, they were releasing that episode of The Mandalorian on Wednesday nights.
Ooh, okay.
So my guess is the speculation is that it's going to tie in a little bit to the Skywalker saga, so we're very excited. But I mean, that was the cool thing about this episode. This episode took a much bigger step into the Star Wars universe by introducing the Force, by introducing us a very Force sensitive. I think most of us thought when we saw Baby Yoda for the first time that he was going to be a Force user, but it's cool. Not only was it confirmed, but he didn't just like lift a small thing. I mean, he did like a big giant Force thing like right out of the gate.
A multi-1,000-pound beast.
Well, and it's cool too because the other thing I really liked, and it's kind of last couple things before we will get to Watchmen in the news here in a second, but the thing that I really liked too is like nobody knew what it was. Like in Rogue One they talked about the campaign of the Empire had tried to wipe out all recollection of the Jedi, right? That people had forgotten about the Jedi, and we take it for granted because we watched A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and we watched Luke Skywalker on his journey to becoming a Jedi. But the rest of the universe, the Jedi are gone. They don't know Luke Skywalker's a Jedi. They don't know Vader was a Jedi. They don't know the Emperor was a Jedi. So, 5 years later, the Jedi have all been but wiped out. Who knows if Luke's even started his Jedi temple yet? There's really not very many Jedi around. So it's actually pretty realistic that these people wouldn't even know what just happened. Like, they're just like, I don't know. That little green thing raised his hand and this rhino floated in the sky. We have no idea what it is. And how confusing that would be if you didn't know about the Force, right? And I really like that in this, is that they're reintroducing the Force. It's kind of what The Last Jedi was about sparking, the Force, rebuilding belief in it, making Luke Skywalker become a legend again so people believed in the Force, right? I think little things like this really help to expand the universe in a way that, like, it makes much more sense. Luke sacrificed himself. The entire universe hears about it, about the lone Jedi. Now all of a sudden the magic of Jedis are back, right? I mean, think about Rey's reaction when she talked to Han for the first time about Luke Skywalker, and she's like, Luke Skywalker? Like, this guy's real? He's like King Arthur.
Yeah. And let's see, so in this time frame, though, so it's 5 years after the Return of the Jedi, so Luke is still probably just trying to, like, figure himself out.
I mean, he's one lone Jedi running around the entire universe. So, I mean, I'm sure a few people know maybe that he could be back. But, like, I mean, very few people really believe in the Jedi anymore. And like I said, by the time we get to Rey, 30 years later, she still doesn't realize, like, she still thinks the Jedi are a myth.
Yeah, I mean, and Luke, as we know, did try to make one attempt to rebuild the Jedi Order, and that didn't end very well.
Yeah, and he got burnt to the ground, and then he went into hiding. So, I just thought it was a cool touch. I mean, it kind of reminded me, especially, that that's right. People don't know about the Jedis, and people don't know what Yoda is. I mean, they don't know what this little baby is. They don't know how special he is and how powerful he is, right? So, I thought that was pretty cool. And then just the way that they did the music, it's very, the soundtrack's been very somber, but then, it gets very slow when the Mandalorian's about to be trampled. Then all of a sudden the music swells and all of a sudden it's Star Wars again.
That little hand. Going,
and you feel the magic. And that part when he lifts his hand, you feel the magic of Star Wars kind of swell back into the show. And I am so excited for Friday. I mean, my kids you're like, okay, what time on Friday when we get home from school? Do we watch Mandalorian then? Or do we? I'm like, we'll watch it.
Well, my son literally walked in the door, threw his bag like down on the ground and said, let's watch the Mandalorian.
I watch Mandalorian, which sucks for me because you were 3 hours ahead of me. So at noon, I'm starting to get texts from you about the Mandalorian. I'm like,
I know. I'm just sitting there just like,
damn it, we're not going to talk about Baby Yoda. All right, I think we should probably table that there, unless you got anything else from the episode you want to talk about.
No, I'm looking forward to what episode 3 brings, and
and we'll talk about it on the next episode.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, we only have a couple news stories, but we will still give you the news intro because I know how much you guys love the judo chop of information. Boom! The uppercut of truth, justice, and knowledge.
And then we'll finish it off, Brian, with the leg sweep of learning.
Yes, there we go. Since we're on the topic of Star Wars, there's obviously been some Star Wars stuff this week. The Episode 9 promotional team is in full swing, and every day we have new Entertainment Weekly covers and new headshots and new pictures. If you're anything like me, I'm trying to stay away from anything other than just like glamour shots. I'm trying to see no scenes from the movie or anything because I don't want to. Already I saw one supposedly leaked image of Rey floating through space, so I'm just like, all right, that's it. I'm done. I don't know if it's true.
Just be prepared that there's going to be a lot of Episode 9 spoilers and leaks that feature photoshops of Baby Yoda.
Yeah, there's been all kinds. I think I've shared a few of them. but apparently Kathleen Kennedy did a big, huge spread in a big article in, I think, Hollywood Reporter, where she talked about George Lucas and being the head of Star Wars and the difficulty making Star Wars movies. And, one of her things that she talked about was that George Lucas's original comments that he felt betrayed were taken completely out of context, and and everybody wants us to wave a magic wand and make Star Wars movies, but the truth of the matter is we don't have comic books to follow. We don't have, we don't have 800-page books to follow, take story from. We have to create new stories and take them in new directions, and we have to fill it out, and we try and hopefully make things that the fans like and stuff like that. It was a really good read. I recommend if you're a fan of Kathleen Kennedy or kind of like to see like the truth behind the drama sometimes. It was a good read, but one of the things that came out is that even though Benioff and Weiss are gone, they are still holding to the 2022 release of the next Star Wars movie, the first in the next trilogy. And she said in the next couple of months, so probably I think she was hinting towards January, where we should hear about the next director. So they have people in mind. It's not Rian Johnson, but they have a plan, and they're going to be announcing it in the next month or two. So.
There is no shortage of directors that would step up and do a Star Wars movie.
Well, and on the heels of The Mandalorian, I haven't gotten numbers yet, but apparently it's Disney Plus's most downloaded show, and it's one of the most downloaded shows of any streaming service all year.
It's always the very front of the most popular.
Yeah, The Mandalorian is a massive hit by all means, and the weekly numbers, the important thing is from episode 1 to 2, the numbers went up, right? So it's not like everybody checked it out and then the numbers just tanked. Everyone's like, ooh, we like this. I'm going to tell my friends. Let's all watch this together, So, yeah. And not just that, it's Star Wars, so people are watching them too. I've talked to somebody who's seen both episodes 10 times already, and I'm like, well, that's a bit much, but I'll probably watch each episode, and then when it's all out, I'll probably binge watch the whole thing again. Mm-hmm. But hot on the heels of that news, apparently the new speculation is that the new the people that are going to be heading Star Wars for kind of the Kevin Feige of Star Wars, they're going to do as Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, the people who created The Mandalorian.
I have no complaints about that. I mean, Jon Favreau was the one that essentially kicked off the Marvel Universe. I mean...
and here's the thing. I love everything that Disney's done with Star Wars. I am unabashedly a giant fan of what Disney's done. In fact, Rogue One, the people like the most, is probably my least favorite, honestly. But I love what they did with The Last Jedi. I love The Force Awakens. I love the new characters. I love The Mandalorian. I love Solo. Mm-hmm. And... you know what? And Jon Favreau has been part of this thing for a while, and Dave Filoni, he studied at the hands of George Lucas. But I do say that I do think, as much as I've loved everything they've done, I do think that Star Wars could really benefit from a creative team that know Star Wars, love Star Wars, and are kind of guiding the future of Star Wars. And I like Kathleen Kennedy, but I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is the creative writer that you need in charge of this thing, like a Kevin Feige is, right? She's a boss. She shouldn't also be the creative juices behind the whole thing. So
yeah, she seems to be like a good delegator and decision maker. Yeah. And there's no she's not in question of her abilities to manage.
Well, and I think one of the things she liked about JJ, I think if they could have brought JJ Abrams on to do the whole thing, I think they would have loved to, but I just don't think that's what JJ wanted to do. JJ doesn't seem to really want to be tied down to any one franchise. He wants to just branch out and do everything. So I think what they really want, and I think if it is true, I think if Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni were the guys who were in charge of this, I think it would be good. I think it would be good for Star Wars, in a way that Kevin Feige in charge of Marvel was good for them. Having one person, one or two people with a vision who love the the property and know a lot about it and can guide it. I think that'd be great. And obviously from The Mandalorian, you can tell it's people who love Star Wars and. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's just a rumor. We'll see. Hopefully, like I said, in the next couple of months, we'll find out a lot more about the future of Star Wars. I'm just very happy to hear that they're still they're still going to hit their 2022 deadline, because the fact of not getting more Star Wars movies for like 5 or 6 years would just crush me.
Yeah, it's going to be a long wait between when we get the next Star Wars movie in a couple of weeks, and then having to wait, that long.
Yeah,
we've waited longer, so I guess we can show some.
Yeah, we've waited too long. I don't want to wait anymore. When Disney bought Star Wars, to signal to my beautiful beating Star Wars heart that I would never have to go more than like a year without something Star Wars in my life.
Well, that's why we have Disney Plus now, bro.
All right. Well, That is true. Okay, a couple little other things real fast. Lord of the Rings series from Amazon that has not even started filming yet has been renewed for season 2. So apparently they're either real excited about it or just realized they've sunk so much money into it that they might as well just automatically renew it for however long. Whatever. Let's see here. Netflix has ordered a Viking spinoff, so we'd heard that there might be a couple of Viking shows in the works. Most people anticipated that the spinoff shows would be at the History channel. Apparently History passed on them and Netflix picked it up. So this is going to be a history show that the spinoff is on Netflix.
Well, if I don't know how much you know about the history, but I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't got all the way caught up on the Vikings yet.
Well, I'm caught up on the TV show, but this show is going to be set 100 years after the show that we're watching now.
Oh, 100 years. Okay, so yeah. So none of the main characters are going to be...
No one will be alive. There might be some... I'm sure they'll talk about the great-grand... by this point, probably Ragnar and his sons will be more like legends than actually real people.
Yeah. I mean, in 100 years, it'll be William the Conqueror.
That's what the show is about.
Set into Rollo. So
that is what the show. That is William the Conqueror is the main character in this show. So that will be very good, Ryan. You get $100. Congratulations. Let's see here. What else we got? Last couple things. The Black Adam movie apparently is officially a go. The Rock has released an image of him as Black Adam. And
basically Superman light.
Basically Shazam, evil Shazam. And it's supposedly coming out December 22nd, 2021. So we'll see. So it's going to go head-to-head with an Avatar movie. We'll see how that goes. And then lastly, Netflix apparently has gotten the rights to Beverly Hills Cop 4. They are going to make the sequel with Eddie Murphy. So everyone's coming back.
I'm 100% for this.
I say, sure. Why the hell not? Oh, actually, I have one more quick story, and it's just more pointing it out because it just sounds batshit crazy. I'm going to read the synopsis here in a second. There's
I know what you're talking about.
There's two stories. We'll get to the batshit crazy one in a second. Apparently, Star Trek 4 is a go, but it will not be the J.J. Abrams universe. No one knows what this one's going to be about, but it's going to be written and directed by the guy who did Fargo and Legion, Noah Hawley, TV show guy.
Star Trek is starting to get a little bit all over the place. But,
yes, they're calling it Star Trek 4, but like I said, it does not take place in the J.J. Abrams universe, so it will not have Chris Pine and whatever. And then lastly, Nicolas Cage, who's had an interesting career as of lately, has been taking on some very interesting movie choices. This, however, may be his most interesting and possibly greatest he's ever done. So he's in talks to play a movie that's about Nicolas Cage. So if it sounds strange, I haven't got to the best part yet. So here we go. So here is the Nicolas Cage movie. So this movie is about Nicolas Cage, the real person, trying to land a very coveted role in an upcoming Tarantino movie. Right? Because his daughter loves Tarantino and his daughter hates him and he wants to make her happy. And he's trying to get this role in a Tarantino movie. But apparently in the movie, he also has like a split personality where he has his other personality is a 1990s egotistical version of Nicolas Cage, of himself, who berates him who constantly berates him for making bad movies. And on top of it, and if that's not enough to make you watch the movie, which I'm already sold with those two things, the third thing that's going to be happening in this movie is apparently he has a ton of debt because he's made some bad acting choices and some bad financial decisions. So he's agreed to appear at a birthday party of a Mexican drug cartel guy who's a giant Nicolas Cage fan who has hired him because he secretly wants Nicolas Cage to read the script of a movie he's written for Nicolas Cage. So that is what this movie is about.
How do we know that this is not actually a documentary that was done?
How do we know this isn't a reality show?
Pawn it off as we made it all up. It's really not true. Nick Cage is not absolutely insane.
Well, I think we know he's absolutely insane, but yeah, that movie, no title yet on that movie, but I hope it's just called Nick Cage or called Cage. They should just call it Cage.
And it needs the someone from Con Air to do the voiceover.
Listen, I'm still waiting for Nick Cage to star in the Superman movie by Tim Burton. I still kind of want to see that movie. It's so weird. All right, well that is all the news we have for you guys. So I think it's time to move on, Ryan, to our last segment of the night, where we're gonna have a little conversation about The Watchmen, HBO's The Watchmen.
Look, it's a squid.
It's a giant squid. So anybody who's not familiar with this, feel free, if you'd like to, listen to us talk about it. If you're interested in it and you're kind of like, well, I want to hear somebody else talk about it, then feel free to listen. But we are going to be spoiling a lot of this. We're going to talk about some of the major plot points and things. I will say this. This show is so good, so spoiler, the show is so good that spoiling moments in it will not ruin your experience of this even a little bit.
No, everything that we're going to talk about is only going to get you excited to see it on the screen.
Yeah, and if it looks weird, and if you're just a casual fan of stuff and you don't know what The Watchmen is, and you're like, well, I know it's a comic book and a movie, but I don't know anything about it, should I watch this show? Yes, absolutely. This show does a pretty good job of kind of filling you in what you need to know, even though there's a lot of backstory. I would still recommend checking out the movie, the Zack Snyder movie from a few years ago. I really enjoyed it. Or you can read the comic book, which this show is much more based off of than the movie, but you can still watch...
It's definitely more based off the comic book than it is the...
Well, it's based off the comic book. It's not based off the movie at all. But the movie is a pretty faithful adaptation of the comic book with the exception of one scene at the very end. So,
yes.
But all that being said, I think if you are on the fence about Watchmen, you should definitely give it a chance. It's 5 episodes. Watch all 5. It's on HBO. Just blow through it. I guarantee you by the end you'll just be hooked like we are. But for everybody else, we're going to have a spoiler-filled conversation about the first 5 episodes, our overall thoughts on Watchmen, what we kind of think going forward, and just what we think about the show in general. So, I don't know about you, Ryan, but the first episode, I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. But by episode 3, I was 100% completely hooked, and I was like, when's the next one? I cannot wait to watch this show. And episode 5 was incredible. The most recent one?
The end of episode 3 was the one where the car dropped down, right?
Yes.
Agent Blake had been talking on the phone. Okay, so after that episode, I was like, sold. I am 100%.
The first episode was good, but it was so strange, and I'm like, they do the cold open about the Black Wall Street massacre, the Tulsa massacre. Yeah. And that was just, I was watching with my wife, and she's like, oh my God, and I was like, this really happened, and she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, anybody who's not familiar with the Black Wall Street massacre, I highly recommend you check it out, Google it. It's one of the worst moments. We had so many bad moments in our nation's history. It's definitely one of the worst ones. It's just, a lot of people who did not there was a lot of, it was a black community that was doing really, really well. And a whole bunch of white people said, we can't have this. And they went through and just burnt the city, to the ground and murdered everybody.
Yeah. And was really no repercussions.
Yeah, with nothing. And this wasn't 300 years ago. This wasn't 1800. This was in the 1900s, early 1900s. So, I don't want to start this on a down note, but when you watch the episode, it is so gut wrenching and appalling. You're just like, you're just like, oh my God, what am I watching? And so if you watch it and you're like, oh my God, thank God it's a TV show. It's not. You should definitely look into it. It is a terrible moment in our history that we should all know about and definitely be aware of. But I do like how the show is I like how the show is set in Tulsa. When I first started watching this, I did not realize how much race relations and how much of America this show was going to represent. And it does. It really captures the race tension in this country. It captures the tension between the government and some of the people who don't trust it, between the elitists and the non-elitists, between the regular folk and everybody else. There is a real this show really feels so the original Watchmen, you could tell, was written by somebody who was from not from America, right? From the original writer of Watchmen was from England. It was very much a look on his kind of disgusted look at American greed and capitalism and kind of the tension of nuclear war. Back in the 80s, it was, anybody who didn't grow up in the 80s, like I did, there was a real threat of, you worried a lot that you were going to go to nuclear war with Russia. Like, that was not a thing that wasn't made up. That
talked about it a lot, like why he wrote the comic book that way and stuff like that. I mean,
and I'm sure his anxiety about being caught,
things that they had to grow up with.
And obviously England's a superpower, but being caught between America and Russia, and possibly starting the end of World War III, nuclear end of the world. And the first Watchmen comic and movie really reflected that a lot, especially the comic book. Where this feels different. This is not about nuclear holocaust
anymore.
This is about.
I mean, well, there still is a little bit of Richard Nixon, but
that's why there's still some Nixon in this, but I mean, this to me was much more. I didn't expect this. It was so much more of a commentary on just American. It's like an American view of the worst of America, right? Like,
yeah.
I did not expect that social commentary about like what happens if you actually try and make amends for the bad things that we've done, right? How does that affect people? How does that make people feel? How do in this show they give reparations to Black Americans who've dealt with the whose ancestors were in the Tulsa massacre and who've had hardships, and so you get to see what Damon Lindelof thinks would happen if we gave Black America reparations for the past. Tried to make things right.
That even small children in school are saying racist. They call it because there's President Redford. They call it the Redformations.
The Redforation. Instead of reparations, the Redforations. And it's just.
Yeah. And the one kid punches another kid in the school because he says that about his adopted mom.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, and to me this isn't a reformation of we should never give reparations. I mean, there's so much things, political stuff that we're not going to talk about on the show that we've
so much racism stuff, but the way that they present it doesn't feel.
And it doesn't feel like, and it's not a show where like all the white people hate all the black people because they got money. It's not like that. There's a small sect of people that feel like they are the victims now because they've had to give money to previous victims it's just, it is definitely a commentary on, like I said, what Damon Lindelof thinks of a lot of the race relations in America right now. And I can't say he's wrong. Obviously, this is an extreme version. We have basically the new Klan, which is the 7th Cavalry, which in the commercials are the ones all wearing the Rorschach mask. And I guess that's the thing that struck me the most about this is I did not expect, when I was going to watch Watchmen, I knew we were going to get an alternate history show about people who were superheroes and a realistic view on what that does to people. I did not expect massive, like, race relation issues, like split America.
I had this was not even close to being on my radar what I thought the show was going to be.
And it's honestly, the social commentary is incredible in this. What's crazy to me is it's heavy-handed, but it's not. It's in your face, but it's subtle. Like it's like, this is awful, this could happen, but because it's alternate history, because it's a fictional show, it doesn't feel as preachy as sometimes as other shows can do when they try and tackle things like this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's done in a very organic way, and it doesn't feel like they're trying to force you to feel,
exactly. Like, they're not preaching to you. They're just showing it like, hey,
what I was
this is how this is how we view the world. This show is a reflection of how we see the worst in our own world and what that can mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's really powerful. And the other thing that struck me was the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, I think, the soundtrack to this is unbelievable. Like,
good.
The mood in every single episode is so on point. Like, to me, Trent Reznor should literally do the soundtrack for everything. I love Trent Reznor scores.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Trent Reznor, well, he used to be the lead man for Nine Inch Nails, and he's kind of gotten into a lot of movies. He did Gone Girl. He did, what's the Facebook movie? Social Network. I mean, he's really good at bringing mood and, like, just, like, anger and, like, just making you feel cold and, like, just scared at the same time. Like, it's so good. He's such a good composer. But it's, it's just, I mean, it does get more into...
Like scenes where they're setting up like a one-shot scene, like someone doing something, but they're walking away, but the camera doesn't change or do anything like that.
It is
so it's like 10 seconds of just this one angle, but and then boom, something happens.
And like at the end of that first episode when they had spoiler, when the chief of police was hanging, and what's her name's grandfather, Angela's grandfather sitting there in a wheelchair. When she pulls up with her car, it scrolls out and it looks like a full 2-page splash in a comic book. To your point. And then the little touch when the blood drips down onto his sheriff badge and it's the Watchmen. To me, that's such a commentary on everything. So like in this, the policemen wear the mask, right? And it's like, if you wear a mask, what can you be? Like, Silk Spectre kind of comments like, yeah, but even the monsters can like hide behind a mask. If you hide behind a mask, you have no accountability. Says the lady who used to hide behind a mask, right?
Yeah. And now Agent Blake, the FBI agent, who's, I have to say, is probably one of my favorurt characters on the show, just because she's so no nonsense. She makes fun of all the people in math. There's Talking Glass. She's like, so Glass guy.
Glass guy. He's like, my face is Looking Glass or Mirror Man. She calls him Mirror Man.
Yeah, his name is Talking Glass, but she keeps calling him Mirror Guy.
His name is Looking Glass.
Mirror Guy's open. You can. So.
I like how they have the communist dude. His name's Red Scare. he looks like a Russian mugger.
Yeah, he's like an old guy that just like cut up a red hat or a red beanie, really poorly.
Well, and what's funny is this show also talks about basically fear. So, all the cops wear masks because one incident where a bunch of racist people went and shot up all the police officers. It also shows like what do you do instead of standing up? You put on a mask, and then once you have the anonymity of a mask, you can do anything, right? You can be anybody. Yeah. And I thought it was very telling that most people probably took when the sheriff is hanging and one single drop of blood hits the sheriff badge, much like the Watchmen emblem, and I think people were like, oh, it's like the Watchmen emblem. But I think, me personally, I think that is telling us that this isn't about heroes. This is about the police, right? This is about the cops in this. So the cops in this show are the superheroes who are corrupt and need to be unmasked, right? And I think that's what this show's really about, is like the relationship between the police and everybody else. And, but yet the cops in this don't necessarily seem like the bad guys quite yet.
Yeah. They don't even have access to their guns.
They don't, but it's just...
First episode, the cop is just trying to get the dispatcher guy, or Panda, who is a very interesting mask.
Well, I think, here's what's crazy. So I think ultimately the show reminds me a lot of The Leftovers in some ways. What that show was about, how do we deal as a people when a whole bunch of us just disappear? How do we deal with mass loss and mass trauma, right? And how we feel about these things. In a lot of ways, this is kind of what The Watchmen is about too, The last episode, the 5th episode, the one that most recently aired, we finally got to see the squid dropped on New York and the psychic blast and what that did. And in Looking Glass, one of our main characters, you find out so much more about him. In the first few episodes, he seems kind of rednecky, but he's super smart. And he's like, oh, this is one of the good guys. And he is a good guy, but by the end of episode 5, you see how, like, what is, like, all the trauma he's gone through that's got him to the point he is now, and what that does to people. And so ultimately, this show is really about people dealing with tragedy, right? The world is trying to move on from, what do they call it, the 11-2 attack, I think is what it's from, the squid attack. And then
the squids.
And then you're trying to deal with the people, the cops are trying to deal with the White Night massacre, where so many cops were killed by racist hate group, right? And so and I think this is, like I said, it's a commentary on when people, in some ways, it's kind of a commentary on us, what happened after 9/11, right? After 9/11, what we do? We struck back, and we're still in a war that we've been into for 19 years with no end in sight, right? So, like, in a lot of ways, the cops had a tragedy, and so what do? They put on masks, right? And this show is just about how people deal with the worst things that happen, and how that, what we do, how that shows who we truly are, right? And I think it's just I think that idea of this is so gripping, which is what makes this. Obviously, it's well acted, well directed. I already talked about the score, but ultimately, it doesn't even matter what the show's about. Like as far as the comic book stuff, because at the core, it's about people dealing with horrible things and how we choose to deal with it reflects us as a people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we're getting a direct continuation of the Watchmen. I mean, it's something that we've been waiting for for a very long time. Because Ron Moore was definitely not going to start on any more comics or doing anything like that anytime soon.
Alan Moore has nothing to do with this. In fact, even at the beginning of the show, they don't put they put created by Dave Gibbons, who was the illustrator. They don't even put Alan Moore's name on it. But I
really am enjoying though all the nods that they're doing to the comic and stuff like that.
Well, I also like how they are starting to get into the comic book stuff more, right? We have Adrian Vaught, who is Ozymandias.
We're getting to see where some of these main characters, like where they are now. So
we haven't seen Dr. Manhattan yet. I mean, we have seen blue penises, but we haven't seen Dr. Manhattan yet. There's been kind of a hint that Night Owl might actually be locked up and in prison.
That's right. When they were doing this, I was like, "Wait, when did we see a blue penis?"
doing the prison
in the show, in the play.
we've gotten a hint that the original Night Owl might actually be in prison, so we'll see. I'm not sure yet. Rorschach is obviously dead, but Adrian Vaught, the original Ozymandias, who's the mastermind of the squid attack in general. We don't quite know everything yet about him, but we do know now that he's trapped in some kind of dimensional prison.
Yes, with that he can make clones or not. I don't know if he's making clones.
Yeah, he's growing clones. The clones are in the lake. I don't know. They have not given us a lot. That's what I like about the show. Every time they answer a question, they give us more. Right?
Just taking these babies and
then growing them quickly. And then murdering him and shooting him with a catapult so he can write a message to Dr. Manhattan?
Yeah.
Like, the show... Here's the thing I like about this show. This is the same guy who did Lost and did The Leftovers. The thing I like about this is, unlike Lost and even The Leftovers, we actually are getting answers pretty quick to a lot of the mysteries. But what they're doing in this is they keep giving us more mysteries, right? So...
Yeah.
In Lost and The Leftovers, they'd give us mysteries and not answer anything and then give us more and more. This one, they're giving us the mysteries. They're answering them, but they're answering them with things that lead to more mysteries, which is just really making the show really, like, every week you're like, ooh, what's next, right?
Yeah, I think in the first 2, maybe 3 episodes, they've done a really good job of setting everything up.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to get to, they're starting to, figure stuff. They're starting to give those little pieces away so you can start to kind of understand like what they're trying to, what's going on.
But like Lou Gossett Jr., we still have no idea what's up with his character. Did he actually murder the police chief? How does he have friends in high places? And then we have the lady, the super smart lady who's building the tower, the clock.
Yeah.
There's a lot
tower, she's worth $1 trillion.
Yeah, she bought Adrian Veidt's, company. Now that we know he's in some weird interdimensional prison, we don't know how he got there. And that's the other thing I think has been really smart. They're introducing new characters, but they're also weaving in the old ones in ways that make sense. So they're not just like, oh, here's Silk Spectre. She's now the president, and now she's going to be in every episode. No, she's like, oh, that makes sense. She became a cop, and now she's... And because she was a hero, she has no time for this just nonsense.
Yeah, it's I definitely like where it's going.
Well, and we're going to get the big Dr. Manhattan episode at some point. They are setting him up as a god, and he's going to be...
and of course, John's not going to give a crap. I mean, he's already given up, on everything. But maybe he was pissed off enough to put Veidt in that, weird dimensional place.
Well, and what's awesome is they also, the other thing I liked is they also have their own kind of black freighter. They gave us the nod to the pirate flag. But so anybody's read the comic book or even seen the director's cut, the Snyder cut, there's the Black Freighter, which is a story in the story about these pirate zombie things. And they're kind of doing that with the show. They're giving us a TV movie I don't know, made for movie about the original Minutemen, the original superheroes, that they're interweaving different parts of the story throughout these episodes, right? So we're getting a secondary story throughout the episodes, just kind of like the comic book did. So to your point, there's so many little nods to the original comic in this. It's just great.
And one of the other things that I noticed that they keep going back to the original mask guy, the hangman, or
the hang vigilante or something. I forget his name. Yeah,
the mask.
Worst costume ever, by the way. A dude running around with like a Black Klan hood and a noose around his neck.
Noose around his neck, but they shown him like defeating something, and then like they keep mentioning him, like they haven't shown him again, but they keep mentioning him. So I have a feeling that he's gonna come back, and
dude, this show is definitely laying the breadcrumbs for future things.
Knight's grandfather, like he was that guy or something, or
Night Nurse, dude, her costume's awesome. I do like some of the costumes the cops have; they're pretty good.
The costumes are great.
I even love the panda. The panda's great.
Yeah, I have no idea. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, I like how like the beat cops just have the yellow like pull up things, right? And then all the actual detectives wear like crazy costumes. Yeah,
I'm enjoying the living crap out of the show.
It is a very good show.
I'm loving all the nods that they're doing to the original comics. And there's not really a lot to criticize about it. I mean, I
have literally nothing to criticize about it. It's great. Yeah. I mean, I will say, if I got to find one thing to criticize, usually HBO has a pretty good like boob to penis ratio, but pretty much this all we've gotten is penis in this HBO. So I'm just, if you're into penises, there's a lot of them in this show. Yeah. I know people talked about Game of Thrones had a lot of penis. No. Well, the Watchmen's got way more penises.
Yeah, but I would definitely say
you have no thoughts on the penises in Watchmen, Ryan?
I'm okay with blue penises. So,
cut that. That's gonna be our that's going on future episodes.
And just I kind of do want a whole bunch of imbecile like servants, just make them do whatever I want. But
all the clones.
Yeah.
Oh, those poor.
Make a whole bunch of them. And it's like, it was a rough night, Then
what are you gonna murder them all and launch them with a catapult into space? You sadistic bastard. No, yeah, but I'm with you, man. It's a great show. All joking aside, I have no criticisms. It's
definitely say read the comic if you have some time. It's not a requirement, but it will help you understand a lot of the stuff that they're talking about.
Absolutely, but check it out. Airs every, I think, Sunday night on HBO. I think the first season is 10 episodes, 9 or 10 episodes. Highly recommend it. The Watchmen on HBO. Watch it now.
Yeah.
There you go. And if you got any questions, you can hit me or Ryan up. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. So, all right, well, I think that's the show, man. Before we get out of here, would you like to tell everybody where they can find us?
Of course, you can find us on YouTube at the Geek Dad Report and Twitter at the Geek Dad Report, where Brian is BrianWest53 and I am Big Bruiser. We're on Facebook at the Geek Dad Report, and you can also find us on iTunes. So make sure you like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, a heart. And most of all, just leave us a comment, because we love talking to people about stuff. And we know that not everybody gets the same opportunity that Brian and I have to talk to one of your best friends and about all the nerdy stuff. So we will be there for you. We will. Well, Brian might try and cuddle with you, but I'll be there.
We're gonna say I'm a cuddler.
So.
Don't you put that on me. Whatever. Yeah. All right, well, thank you for joining us. Like I said, we won't be here next week, so everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Try not to eat too much.
A lot of turkey. We want everyone to gain at least 5 to 10 pounds.
I'm gonna eat 2 pies, though.
It's the only day I eat pumpkin pie. Ugh. So.
Anyway, have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you guys when we get back from the Thanksgiving break. And until then, everyone, stay awesome.
And stay nerdy, everybody.